They climbed a hill with no witnesses and were found dead in identical suits, raincoats and lead masks covering their eyes, no blood, no wounds, no struggle, just two lifeless bodies posed like they'd waited for something. Next to them, a crumpled note. Ingest capsules. Protect metals. Wait for signal. No one knows what it meant. Or who sent it. The autopsy found no poison, no injuries, just a terrifying silence. Were they part of a secret ritual? A failed experiment? Or something far worse? This wasn't a story lost to time, it was buried on purpose. Because once you hear what investigators found next, you'll understand why this case still haunts Brazil nearly 60 years later. It was the afternoon of August 20th, 1966. On Morro do Ventum, a steep hill just outside Niterói, Brazil, a local boy chasing a kite through the overgrown brush made a discovery that would terrify investigators for decades. Lying in the weeds were two adult men, side by side. Perfectly still, they wore matching suits, long waterproof coats, and most bizarrely thick, metallic lead masks covering only their eyes. No signs of trauma. No visible wounds. Not even blood. There were no weapons nearby. No indication of a struggle. Just two silent corpses in formal wear, as if they had calmly waited for something that never arrived. The boy alerted police. The responding officers quickly realized they weren't looking at a typical crime scene. Around the bodies they found a plastic water bottle, two wet towels, a strange notebook, and a handwritten note with chilling instructions. 1630, be at the determined place. 1830, ingest capsules. After effect, protect metals, wait for signal. Forensics couldn't find a cause of death. No poison, no alcohol. No injury. Who were they? Their names were soon revealed. Manuel Pereira da Cruz and Miguel Jose Viana, both respected electronic technicians from a town hours away. Friends, co-workers, and self-taught hobbyists in radio transmission. In the weeks leading up to their deaths, they had become fixated on metaphysical experiments, mixing electronics with spiritualist practices and fringe science. Some investigators believed they were attempting psychic contact, perhaps with extraterrestrials. Others feared they were part of a secret ritual, using lead to shield themselves during an out-of-body experience. But the most disturbing theory? That someone was guiding them, that the note wasn't written by either man. So who led them to that hill? And what kind of signal were they really waiting for? Before their deaths, Manuel and Miguel had spent the week preparing something strange. On August 17th, 3 days before they were found, the two friends told their families they were heading to São Paulo to buy work supplies, electronic components for their technician jobs. But that wasn't the full truth. They boarded a bus headed not for São Paulo, but for Niterói. They carried with them cash, tools, a waterproof trench coat each, and something else investigators would later find troubling, two identical, hand-cut lead masks shaped like heavy sunglasses with no arms. At 2:30 p.m. on August 17th, the two men checked into a small bar in Niterói. Witnesses say they were calm, quiet, and possibly anxious. They'd purchased a bottle of water, the same bottle later found near their bodies, and left, saying they were in a hurry. The next known sighting came from a local boy on the hill, who said he saw both men walking up Morro do Ventum just before sunset. They seemed determined and didn't look back. That was the last time anyone saw them alive. But more curious still were the objects left behind in Miguel's home. Investigators searching his room discovered a notebook filled with diagrams, circuits, waves, strange equations, alongside passages referencing spiritual cleansing, metal preservation, and dimensional barriers. What were they planning? And more importantly, who taught them this? Their families were shocked. The men weren't part of any known group or sect. They were considered responsible, grounded professionals. But something had changed. Something had convinced them to make their own lead masks, to ingest untraceable capsules, to climb a hill and wait for a signal from somewhere, and in the middle of that mystery, one new question surfaced. Where did they get the idea that the lead masks would protect them? Because in 1966, no one else in Brazil had ever died this way. In the weeks following the discovery, newspapers across Brazil swirled with headlines. Mystery on the Hill. Dead men wore lead masks. Ritual or accident? The police, despite gathering physical evidence, had no clear theory, no cause of death, no motive, and no explanation for the masks, the note, or the men's calm descent into the unknown. But the deeper investigators dug, the stranger the story became. Friends of Manuel and Miguel came forward with unnerving details. In the months before their deaths, both men had become involved in a small spiritualist group, one fascinated by the intersection of science and metaphysics. The group's focus? Contacting other realms, specifically using frequency and light to communicate with higher entities, or as some believed, intelligences beyond Earth. This wasn't just fringe philosophy. Brazil in the 1960s was a hub of UFO sightings, psychic experiments, and a growing belief in electromagnetic gateways to other dimensions. The group believed that by combining electrical energy with spiritual focus, a person could cross boundaries, but only if properly shielded. That's where the lead masks came in. The theory was that during the encounter, a blinding light or powerful radiation would appear. The masks were a kind of spiritual protection, shielding the soul, not just the eyes, so when the note said, "Protect metals and wait for signal," it wasn't metaphor. They believed they'd receive a literal signal, a flash, a sound, something divine. Some speculated they took the capsules to achieve a trance state. Others believed they expected physical ascension, to vanish entirely. But something went wrong. The signal never came, or worse, it did. And no one knows what it showed them. So the question remained, did they die from a failed ritual? Or did they reach something and pay the price for what they found? With no visible trauma, the autopsies on Manuel and Miguel became the investigation's only real hope for answers. But even in death, the mystery deepened. The bodies had begun to decompose rapidly in Brazil's sweltering August heat. Nearly 4 days had passed before they were examined. By then, critical biological markers were gone. But even under these conditions, one thing stood out. There were no signs of poison, no cyanide, no alcohol, no sedatives, no capsules left in their stomachs, and nothing traceable in their blood. If they ingested something, it left no trace. Or it was never real to begin with. Some believed the autopsy was rushed, that pressure from higher authorities pushed for a closed case. Others noted that the pathologist made no attempt to preserve the internal organs for retesting, a major oversight in a suspected poisoning. The official cause of death? Cardiac arrest due to unknown circumstances. Investigators, journalists, and skeptics alike began whispering the same phrase, cover-up. Why was the autopsy incomplete? Why were key pieces of evidence, like the masks and notebook, kept from public access? As public interest grew, authorities went silent. But back in Compass, the men's hometown, friends started speaking out. One claimed the pair had spoken of a coming event, something that would change the world. Another said they had mentioned being chosen for a test. A final witness reported that the two had met a mysterious man in gray 2 nights before their deaths, but his identity was never confirmed. Then came a break in the case. A third man, someone who was allegedly supposed to accompany them to the hill, disappeared shortly after their deaths. He was never seen again. Now it wasn't just an unsolved case. It was a vanished witness, a censored autopsy, and a missing cause of death. So what was this group really planning? And more urgently, who didn't want us to find out? As news of the lead masks case spread beyond Brazil, strange echoes began to surface elsewhere. A retired military officer from São Paulo contacted reporters claiming he'd seen a similar case years earlier. 2 men found dead in rural Minas Gerais under equally bizarre circumstances. According to him, they also wore lead masks, but that case? No files, no records, no names, gone as if it had never happened. A researcher from the Federal University of Rio dug deeper and discovered something chilling. Over the past decade, there had been 4 other cases involving unexplained deaths, strange head coverings, and missing toxicology reports, all wiped from public archives. Was the lead masks case part of a larger pattern? Or was someone trying to erase that pattern entirely? Some speculated about secret military experiments, theories that Brazil had been conducting tests in mind control or psychic warfare during the Cold War. In one of the police memos, later leaked to journalists, the lead masks were labeled non-civilian materials. That line was quietly removed from the final report. Others believed these deaths were ritualistic, tied to lost cults, secret esoteric orders, or ancient beliefs about shielding the mind from divine energy. The theories only multiplied. A UFO enthusiast claimed the hill was part of an electromagnetic corridor, a point of contact. A mystic from Recife said the men had ascended, but failed to bring their souls back. A third claimed the masks were designed to block not light, but thoughts. It all blurred together, conspiracy, ritual, experiment. Everything fit, nothing proved, back in Niterói. Locals began avoiding the hill entirely. Some swore they heard humming there at night. Others said the birds stopped flying overhead. And every year, on August 20th, someone leaves 2 lead replicas near the site, perfectly shaped, carefully placed. No one ever claims them, and no camera ever catches who does. Nearly 6 decades have passed since Manuel and Miguel walked into the hills of Niterói, and never came back. The case remains open in name only, no new evidence. No arrests, and no confirmed cause of death. But in the years since, the lead masks case has become more than a mystery. It's a warning, because the deeper you go, the more reality seems to bend. Local legend says animals avoid the hill, that electronic devices glitch or die near the original site. Hikers report losing time, hearing static, or seeing shapes in the tree line. Skeptics dismiss these claims as hysteria, but there's one detail they can't explain. In 2003, a journalist working on a documentary about the case visited Morro do Ventum. He brought with him one of the surviving lead masks, borrowed from a private collector. He stayed overnight to film atmospheric footage. But in the morning, his team found him unconscious, face down on the grass, the mask missing. He had no memory of what happened, just a low ringing in his ears, and a single word written in his notebook, failed. What happened on that hill in 1966? Were Manuel and Miguel victims of a delusion? A ritual, an experiment? Or were they following instructions that came from someplace else? Their masks were meant to protect them from something, but it wasn't fire or light or radiation. It was something we still don't have a name for. And whatever they were waiting for, some believe it's still waiting too. So the next time you see a story about a strange hill, two men in matching suits, or a signal no one can trace, remember this: the bodies were real, the masks were real, and the silence is the only thing that's ever answered back. If you thought the horror ended here, you're wrong. What other dark rituals and forbidden practices are still being performed in secret? Dive deeper into the chilling world of haunted ceremonies, banned footage, and eerie folklore that refuses to stay buried. Click on the playlist to uncover terrifying recordings, lost evidence, and disturbing stories they never wanted you to see. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for weekly uploads of spine-tingling footage and dark tales that echo from the shadows. This is the Forbiddance Archive, where the hidden truth and haunting evidence come to life.